The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day, and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Thursday to join us. Do holiday gatherings with family conjure up feelings of stress for you? Well, if they do, you're not alone. In today's episode, I'll share one key strategy that I've used with clients for years that will not only help you survive, but it will help you navigate holiday stress at family gatherings. A little over a month ago, I attended a workshop on using German new medicine techniques in clinical practice. I spoke briefly about this several weeks ago after I attended the conference. Now, as a review, German new medicine, or GNM, as it's referred to, deals with unlocking trapped emotion that's hidden in organ systems and tissues within the body that are causing illness. Now, reversing this involves several techniques to unlock and release the trapped emotion so that the body can naturally heal as it desires to do. And now, I won't go into those techniques here on today's episode because they're just more advanced strategies, but I will speak about one technique that can be very freeing and bring about quick results if you apply it. As I've mentioned in previous podcast episodes over the past couple of years, our thoughts can modify our DNA, both positively and negatively. It's through German new medicine that we now understand how this can actually happen and how we can navigate family stress during these holiday seasons. Now, here's what I mean. In general, throughout life, or in the example of today's episode, we often find ourselves in situations that might be a little stressful at the holidays, such as, family gatherings. These situations create a lot of external stimuli for our brain, sometimes so much stimuli that it's a little overwhelming for our brain. Now, with this flood of external stimuli coming in, we develop our own perceptions about them. Sometimes these perceptions are deep-rooted and they seem to be on autopilot. Other times, these perceptions are brand new and they're coming out of left field. We're not even sure where they're coming from. These perceptions then activate certain aspects of the brain, both emotionally and in sensory components or sensory centers of the brain. And this brain activation triggers a chemical cascade, a chemical response that goes throughout the entire body that results in organ and tissue activation. Now, this organ and tissue activation in turn causes the cells to react a certain way. And these cellular reactions ultimately, guess what? Affect the DNA within each cell. Now, when the DNA is affected, it ultimately recodes the messages that are sent to the organs and tissues to activate them from a genetic standpoint, which are telling them how to function, or maybe in some particular cases, how not to function. In other words, if we can encapsulate this all, the stimuli from our environment, such as a stressful family gathering, leads to a perception, which leads to chemical changes in the brain, which leads to chemical changes in your organs and tissues, which leads to changes in your cells, which leads to reprogramming your DNA and ultimately reprogramming how your cells and your organs and your tissues function. Whew. I mean, that's a lot of stuff, right? Sadly, we're hardly aware that this is even happening. We just feel the physical and the emotional, mental effects of it all. And we kind of wonder what's happening, what's going on with our body, what's going on with our brain. So how do we tackle this monster? That's the question. Well, the answer is twofold. Now, first, we need a quick fix. Secondly, we need to help the brain and the body and the organs and tissues and the DNA really kind of rewrite a new program to react a different way. That's the crux of German New Medicine that we're not going to necessarily go into today. I'm going to talk about the quick fix. So for the sake of surviving stressful family situation in the holidays, here's the quick fix I'm talking about. Let me introduce you to Beth. Now, Beth is simply a representative example of multiple clients that I've seen throughout the years. She's not an actual person, but her story is an actual story. Now, Beth had been a client of mine for quite some time. And with the holidays approaching, I noticed Beth was, how should I say it, just a little bit off. She wasn't quite her usual self. So naturally, I brought this up during her visit, that she seemed a little off. Beth finally opened up to me and began telling me how stressful her family gatherings have been in the past few years, and how she always has a buildup of anxiety and stress and sometimes anger going into and through the holidays. I listened as Beth gave the example of one particular family gathering where she, which occurs every year, where she gets to see aunts and uncles and grandparents and nephews and nieces and cousins from all across the country who come in for this once a year event. It's kind of a family reunion of sorts. Then she proceeded to say that there was always tension with about 2 or 3 people in her family due to some just past history, past drama, and how it made her feel really uncomfortable being around them, because she, quite frankly, always felt like she was walking into an ambush. She said it had escalated to the point in the previous couple of years where she was considering avoiding the family gathering altogether this year. And it hurt her heart to even consider that. Now, have you ever felt like Beth? Have you ever felt like you were walking into an ambush at a family get-together and you just wanted to check out this year and not go to the family gathering? If you've dealt with family stress at the holidays, then Beth's story probably sounds familiar to you. So when Beth got through explaining how a few people in her family were seemingly responsible for attempting to steal her joy, but the 30 or so other people in her life were not, I asked Beth one important question, and it's the question that I'll ask you. So the question I asked Beth was, Beth, in deciding whether or not to go to this family gathering, are you making this decision out of fear or out of love? And she paused for a minute, and then she looked up with tears in her eyes and she said, I'm making this decision out of fear. And if I'm being honest, I've probably made most of my decisions my entire life out of fear. Now, you see, being able to answer this question is the root of the number one solution to navigating stress at family gatherings this holiday season. Ask yourself, am I going to this family gathering out of fear or out of love? Or another way to look at it is, self, am I deciding not to go to this family gathering out of fear or out of love? And get really honest with yourself. Ask the hard question and give the truthful answer. I mean, don't buffalo yourself. Give an honest answer. Our motivation should never be out of fear for anything that we do, unless, of course, there's a bear chasing you. Our motivation for making decisions should be out of love for others, love for ourselves. You see, at the end of the day, Beth decided to go to her family gathering because she was going out of love for the 30 or so other people, the other family members who pour into her. And likewise, she pours into them. It's reciprocal, unadulterated, unconditional love. She didn't let fear of three people possibly ambushing her keep her from the rest of her family. Now, mind you, we had a game plan, a contingency of sorts for how Beth would respond if one or all of those three family members who she's had issues with in the past decided to start drama. And that's exactly what happened. They tried to do that. When the drama tried to start with and among these three, Beth stood her ground in love and looked the bullies in the eye and said, "This is not the time or the place." She was calm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't create a scene. She simply looked them in the eye and said, "This is not the time or place." And when you come from a place of love, it's really easy to have that peace and calm about you because you're no longer standing in fear. You're not afraid of the bully in front of you. You're standing there in full presence of the embodiment of love. And you're saying, you know what? I'm not going to let you steal my joy. This is not the time or the place to do this. I mean, well done, Beth. And guess what? You can do the same. It takes two to tango. And if you don't dance the tango when the negative Nancys in your family are trying to rain on your parade and pull you down and steal your joy, then guess what? You are living a fulfilled life within the protection of and through the power of love. Now, there's a special note here. I've also dealt with other Beths throughout the course of my career who decided not to go to those family gatherings because at that particular moment in history, in relation to other events that had happened, the best love that they could express was toward themselves by not being in close proximity to the ambush or the people that they knew would hurt them. So it goes both ways, guys. I'm not saying that you have to go to family gatherings because it's the loving thing to do. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that decision is personal. It's yours, but you need to make sure, you deserve to make sure that you're making the decision out of love and not out of fear. If you stand firmly in, you know what? I don't need to go to this year's family gathering because it's the most loving thing I can do for myself to protect myself emotionally and physically, then man, I support you 210%. But don't make that decision out of fear. That's where you got to pull back in and do that honest reflection, that honest gut check and say, how am I making this decision? Am I making this decision out of fear? Am I making this decision out of love? And this stands true for any relationship that you're in. It doesn't matter whether it's holiday season or not holiday season, your significant other that you're sharing a home with, that you're sharing life with, there's always tension and conflict that will crop up from time to time. And we tend to jump in and have these emotional responses. And we need to just stop and ask ourselves, am I having this visceral response because it's coming from a place of fear and hurt? Or am I having this visceral response because it's coming from a place of love? If we can stop ourselves and begin to take an assessment and say, okay, where am I on this? Is this fear or is this love? Then we can start to move forward. Now, in a nutshell and version, I will give you exactly what we're doing with German New Medicine. German New Medicine, as I explained at the top of the show, is a comprehensive system for reversing the trapped emotion in the body. Now, purists in German New Medicine start from a top-down approach. They start with thinking patterns like the one I've just shared with you, this No.1 technique for surviving the family stress at the holidays, where we start with how we're thinking. Is this coming from a place of fear or love? That's a top-down approach because ultimately that will trickle down to your DNA. But here at the Genesis Zone, we take a different approach. We start at the top with these German New Medicine techniques, these subconscious reprogramming techniques, and we start at the bottom with the genetics, and we meet in the middle where the healing occurs. So instead of starting at the top and moving down toward the DNA, We start with the DNA, and we start at the top with thinking patterns, subconscious thinking patterns, and we meet in the middle. And we get results really, really quickly that way. So if you're curious about what that looks like, this combination of subconscious reprogramming, German New Medicine, and the DNA work that we start with to nutritionally support the genes so that they function better, and can start reprogramming in a more healthy way the messages that they send to the organ systems in the brain, then reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Brian G. Brown. Now, if you're a curious self-starter type and you just want to know more about the DNA component, then I've got a boot camp. It's called the Gene Hack Boot Camp. I know that sounds really kind of laborious, like, oh my gosh, he's going to have us doing a lot of work. There's not a lot of work in that. It's self-paced. It's kind of go through, listen to the material, start developing an understanding of how genes can be reprogrammed. And then if you want to take a next step, you can take a next step and reach out after that. And in order to enroll in the boot camp, and you can do that for free right now, go to drbriangBrown.com/gene hack /boot camp. That's drbriangBrown.com/gene hack /boot camp. And you can register there for free. That's all I've got for today. Tune in next Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time for our next In the Zone segment, where I'll be discussing latest research, if that applies, or what I've been studying and what I've been working with, and how that applies to you in optimizing your emotional and physical health, optimizing your genes, optimizing your wellness journey. Most informed, most trusted, and most grateful you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone. I'm Dr. Brian Brown.